There you are. So Rusty Hofmann from Stanford University and Grand Rounds will talk to us about the employer perspective of patient second opinion.
Great. Good afternoon. Again, I'm Rusty Hofmann, and thank you, Bill, for the invitation to speak. My disclosure is much of what I'm going to talk about is what I've learned from a company that I started. So Bill asked me to talk about the employer perspective of oncology centers of excellence as well as second opinion services. And I think he must have had a crystal ball when he invited me in like August to be here, because I think you're all aware of this announcement 12 days ago when Amazon, JP Morgan Chase, and Berkshire Hathaway said, we're tired of the care that we're getting right now and the value that we're getting. We are going to fix it ourselves. And by the way, I'm a retailer person, a banker, and an insurance person. So I think this is a major inflection point in healthcare in our country. So why is an interventional radiologist giving this talk? And I'm going to tell you what we've learned in the second opinion space and Center of Excellence. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the way Grand Rounds approaches it, because I think there's actually some lessons that are learned that will be relatively ego-congruent with the topics that have been brought up throughout the discussions. So Grand Rounds is actually, it's the company I started. It's basically the front door to healthcare now. So all the doctors in the room, think of every phone call that you get from everyone on the planet that knows who you are, whether it's do you have poison ivy or do you have metastatic, breast cancer. Think of all those calls. That's kind of what I was trying to solve. I told my co-founder and my product team, we need to replace Dr. Rusty's cell phone. And I don't refer to myself in the third person, but they always call me that. And that was their mission. So we started off with expert opinions where we would get all the medical records, all the imaging, package it together and send it to someone famous, like really one of the top 10, 20 people in the country to review it, write up the opinion, and go back to the patient, no matter what the disease state was. What was amazing is we have a major, since the company's been around now in market for 5 years, we have a major change in diagnosis or treatment 66% of the time. That's a major change, not tweaking a metoprolol dose. This is wrong diagnosis or wrong treatment. And we adjudicate this on a case-by-case basis with the expert, with the staff physician from Grand Rounds, and then ultimately with the customer, which I'll get into. What happened was people are like, wow, my local doctor is giving me the wrong information. Who should I go to instead? So we developed an algorithm using 7 billion pieces of data to identify who we would believe was a high-quality physician, who was the right physician. So if you need a neurologist for a headache, we're going to send you to a headache doctor, not a movement disorder or not a multiple sclerosis. But then we found that our patients really wanted even more information. They wanted to know, what is Lipitor? Can I breastfeed if I just took Tylenol? Like all these types of questions. So we staff in-house, either by phone or through video, ways that patients can call in and ask just very, very simple questions. So how does this all kind of work? Is that when I sat in my office about 7 years ago, completely frustrated with being an interventional radiologist at Stanford, I was equally frustrated when I was at Hopkins, so that's no ding against my Stanford and my colleagues that are with me, because I do love my job there, is that I realized that we are so constrained by the dysfunctional system that we're in. And listening to all the things that people say, I said, we got to just be in a different system. So let's design a company where we put the doctors and patient at the center. We're cognizant of what employers are paying for, and let's build software and services to power healthcare, not build an EMR that's for billing and archiving. And so with that, we targeted large self-employed insurers. We go to them and say, guess what? You're not getting good healthcare. Like, yeah, we know that. So we have a better way to help you. These are our customers. Walmart, to me, when they signed up, they, to me, are the most sophisticated purchaser of healthcare in the United States, so the largest employer in the world. They are tired of the care that they're getting. Grand Rounds serves over 3.5 million covered lives. And really, It's a great population to experiment with because over half of Americans get their health care through their employer. We don't have to wait for CMS to give a ruling or on billing. We can just tell the employer this is what we think is the right thing to do, and they pay us for it. If you look at the expert opinions, okay, so these are the experts' opinions. Again, this is, Susie in Topeka with breast cancer. We get all the information and we send it to Lydia Shapira, who was at Mass General at the time. Now she actually is at Stanford. This is the different types of stuff that we do. About a quarter is musculoskeletal, a quarter is cancer, and the rest is everything else in medicine. And so right now, our patients that come to us that work at large self-insured employers, remember this is kind of ages 18 to 65, 20% of them have cancer. What the people that are at the employers are saying, these are the people that pay for the benefits, that select and pay for the benefits for these large populations of people, is say, I want to provide the best support possible for my employees and their family members who have been diagnosed with cancer. As an employer, how can I help? These people that are in the benefits, they are the bleeding hearts of a company. They really want to do something right. And they maybe had some wellness thing that they did or some free food morale boost, but they really feel it when their people get sick. They're really worried. These purchasers are worried about specialty pharmaceuticals due to their expense. And one thing that I think is really pertinent to the discussions we've been having here is oncology is one of many areas that they need help, right? So it's only 20% of the problems they're dealing with, as I showed you on the other side. And it's not like we only want to solve the problems for the people in New York or in Texas. We need to figure out a strategy across the country on how we are going to provide and deliver oncology care. The patients, is very, this won't sound unfamiliar to those of us that take care of cancer patients, is I feel overwhelmed at the doctor's office and I don't understand the technical terms my doctors are using. I think this is shame on us, and I'm very guilty of this because this is the way I practice at Stanford. My area of expertise is DVT, and I'll talk to patients about how I'm going to open up their blood vessels and put in these stents, and we'll put them on blood thinners, and they walk out the door, all with just the rich oral tradition of storytelling. I've told them what's wrong and what the risks or benefits. The patients, they don't have any enduring material. So what happens when we do the expert opinion through grand rounds, it's a written document that is written to the patient at an 8th grade level. It gets to the patient, and one of our staff from the expert, and it goes to the local treating physician. Our staff physician calls the patient 24 hours later and makes sure they understand what the opinion said. And if you look at what their knowledge was related to, I understand my disease very well, it's 44% before that process, and at the end, it's 91%. And guess what the adherence rate is? 90%. How do we know they adhere to our treatment plan? Because we can follow their claims trail through their employer to make sure they do what we said over the next 12 months. Also related to the local physician, if the local physician reads the opinion from Dr. Famous and answers questions, we grant that physician CME. So we are trying to raise all boats with a high tide. The patients are overwhelmed again with what options or treatment they have. And also this document, it's on a portal. They can share it with their grandmother, their spouse, their sister, their best friend. So everybody gets the same information about what's going on with, Susie from Topeka. And then they're really about, I tell all of my patients, as doctors, we are really good about to save your life, saving your life. We're terrible on helping you learn to live with your condition. So really, what are the support things you need to do for people? What's the optimal op site for people that have, ports? What's the best topical anesthetic for pediatric patients before they get stuck? These are things that are really, really, really important to patients. And the comment about patient-centered outcomes, that is really At the end of the day, that's what matters. They're the ultimate consumer. They're the ultimate customer. We have to listen to what the patient wants and make sure we provide that to them. So when we talk to employers, they agree with this. Low quality care is driven by late diagnosis, obviously misdiagnosis, low patient health literacy support. I don't think we can underestimate how poorly educated our patients are relating to understanding the complexity and severity of disease. I've seen this firsthand when my son developed aplastic anemia and needed a bone marrow transplant, that's a whole nother story. But watching my wife, who's got her MBA from Johns Hopkins, try to understand the immunological system and repopulation of a bone marrow, I've spent hundreds of hours trying to teach her what it meant, and she still did not completely understand it. And then also utilizations of diagnostics and treatments with minimal clinical benefit. These employers have no problem paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for therapies that work. They just don't want to pay it for wasteful therapies. So they will call us and say, hey, we were told we need to spend $200,000 for this treatment, and it's been denied by our TPA, our third-party administrator. We're like, hey, we'll send it off to one of our experts and we'll see what they say. And it comes back, yep, that's something that just got approved in the past 3 months. It has not made it into the guidelines. Grand Round says to pay for it. They're like, no problem, we'll write the check today. So they really want guidance. Now, we've talked a little bit about this related to narrow networks, also high performance networks. They're trying to use centers of excellence, telemedicine, and second opinions. And when you look at centers of excellence, they're kind of a wet blanket. They get a lot of talk. There's people, high of 44%, but it's forecasted to decrease to 33%. And I think it makes sense to have a center of excellence for like a new hip. Like you hop on a plane, you go get a new hip, you come back home. But cancer is scary. Patients do not want to travel, especially when they have a life-threatening illness. They want to be home with their family and their support network. So centers of excellence for cancer, I think, required travel is not a long-term solution. It's back to what we talked about. It's dissemination of information and knowledge and getting the experts' information out, like with the discussion related to Project Echo. And again, so what do the employers want? They don't want just the best radiologist or the best pathologist or the best surgeon. They want it from A to Z. They want us to prevent cancer. Okay, so what are you going to do with your strategy that makes sure my patients get the screening exams that they're supposed to get? When is the diagnosis and treatment accurate? Let's get a second opinion. Do we have to do every case of pathology need to be re-reviewed? Does every radiology case have to be removed? Okay, now we're going to try and give this information to a patient. Let's make sure they understand what we're telling them. And then let's make sure whatever care is given, we know medicine is a team-based sport, let's make sure that the care is being delivered in a high-quality institution with low infection rates in the ICU, as well as in the OR. And really, again, back to why, with the centers of excellence, you have to get in a car, park someplace, walk 20 minutes, take off all your clothes, and get into a gown to get a second opinion at a center of excellence. And quite honestly, at least at Stanford, coordination for all this type of stuff is not patient-friendly by any stretch of the imagination. And so, again, we're putting these patients into this dysfunctional system, at least from my perspective. When you look at treatment options and how we have experts looking at the records, providing the opinions, we try to match them to clinical trials when appropriate. We make sure that the clinical trial will be covered by their insurance before we tell the patient, because it would be pretty terrible to say, oh, there's a clinical trial, but by the way, you have to pay out of pocket. And we look at their pharmaceutical regimen. In our experience, we have 36% of cases have a treatment change plan on the oncology aspect of our second opinions. With pathology, we have a special algorithm where we just kind of identify where we think is the most likely time that a patient is going to have a change in diagnosis based on a pathology read. And so with that, 40% of our cases have a change in diagnosis because of the way we select out who needs to be reread. So we're fortunate to work with a number of you guys across the country. These are people we actually have formal contractual agreements, and we really appreciate our partnership. And so in conclusion, I'd like to summarize, what is the employer's perspective on cancer care and rest of the healthcare? They're fired up, they're angry, and they're mobilizing. So I think we all need to take heed of this. Thank you for your time.
Looks like we have a clarifying question for Rusty.
Yes.
So this is, we can't do enough of this because a lot of us that are in cancer centers around the country personalize this for family members, people that come to us, et cetera. So kudos. I followed another company, N of One, that does this. They're on the other coast. And how does your business model deal with the tremendous amount of knowledge base you have to curate in real time, all the time, to keep this fresh so it's not just back to good docs who know medicine and actually scalable to a large population?
So right now we're the largest company for second opinions by covered lives and volumes of second opinions that are done. We are currently relying on our experts to be the ones that are up to snuff on how things are changing. We're hoping over time that we will have a large enough corpus of data that we will be able to actually kind of automate some of these processes that are relatively straightforward, or disease states that are straightforward. But right now, we're relying on experts. So I don't know if it was you that made the comment or earlier this morning about we have 80 prostate, or maybe it was Hetty, 80 prostate doctors that read the prostate MRIs from around the country. I mean, we really, to me, it's volume and expertise that really allows you to stay up on the changes.
Thank you.